The main thing we wanted to share with you all is just thanks for coming. We know you have a lot of things to do. There's a lot of events going on, virtual events, and as fatigue sets in here, it's just nice to see people's faces and just smile and laugh and continue to be with each other. So, if you want to continue to engage with MnSearch, we're at MnSearch, hashtag MnSearch, board at MnSearch, and we want to hear from you. All right, so and then moving into the next screen here, we'd like to thank you to our sponsors. We've got our virtual event sponsor, Rocket 55. We would love to just have everybody go to their website and get them a lot of clicks to their important conversion events and things like that, so they can say that the time that they and resources that they invest in MnSearch are well worth it. Also, we'd like to thank our annual sponsors, Rank Crankers, Click 360, Nordic Click, Hook Agency. Raise your hand if you're from any of those amazing organizations. Wonderful. Thank you, Brooke. Thank you, Michael, and others if you raised your hand. I didn't quite see that, but really appreciate you all being here. If you're interested in sponsoring MnSearch, email sponsorships@mnsearch.org or go to mnsearch.org/sponsorship. Or if you'd like, we've got Jason on the line here tonight. Feel free to just reach out to him, and he can give you all the information you need about that. So we are happy to have you, and we means the board of directors. This is them, we are they. This is a wonderful group of nonprofit volunteers who are just basically here to help with the community. We're here to elevate search marketing as a industry. We're here to help people get jobs, make hires, do all those interesting and wonderful things that add value to their professional lives. So we're happy to all have you here. And we do also have one question mark. We do have an open spot right now. I believe we have one open spot. Is it just our diversity spot, or do we also have other spots open right now?
Yeah, we will be posting our diversity director position here soon. So keep an eye out for updates from us about our diversity initiatives coming up. And if you're interested in joining the board, definitely reach out to anyone here today or check out the website.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Carrie. Appreciate that. So look for that. And then also, we'd love to have you become a member. If you go to mnsearch.org/membership, you'll see a number of different membership options, from individual options, group options for corporations, nonprofit memberships. We also have a deal on student memberships and also on any memberships for people that have been affected, where maybe their job has been affected from COVID or some circumstances like that. So if that applies to you and you don't see that specific type of membership on the website, reach out to members at mnsearch.org. We'd be happy to have you join this fine organization. All right. So that said, we are here to talk about spooky marketing mistakes. Now, every time that you go to an event, it's most likely going to be about somebody is going to be saying something that they did that was really smart, something that was, a highlight for them. But oftentimes we can learn much more from some of the mistakes that we've made. And I think that's where it's great that we've got some wonderful speakers here from the MnSearch board here tonight to share some of the spookiest marketing mistakes and how you can avoid them, because that is oftentimes the best way to learn. So I think, Abby, I believe you are first up tonight, so I'll turn things over to you.
Thank you. So Josh, that was an awesome intro. Yes, we will be covering specifically the spookiest marketing mistakes across paid content and organic search. So without further ado, we'll start things off with content. So mistake number one, poor readability. If you think this is hard to read, some people are afraid of goblins, ghouls, ghosts. This is what keeps me up at night, just feeling really afraid. And if some of you are thinking, oh, this isn't me, I would never publish a big wall of text like this. Absolutely not. And your content looks like this, you're pretty much halfway there. And nope, we don't want to do that. So why? Our friend the goldfish here says, right now, the average attention span of users is about 8 seconds. So you have less time than ever to keep users interested on the page. And the goal of all that is to get them engaging with your site and clicking on your CTAs. So how do we improve readability and get rid of that scary wall of text, which kind of makes people want to escape with the back button? The first best practice is limit your paragraphs, whether you're on a blog page or you're on a product page, to 3 to 4 lines of text maximum. So what this does is it really breaks up that wall of text into chunks, and it keeps people moving from the next point onwards by giving them new things to kind of focus on. One site that does a really good job of this is healthline.com. They actually only use pretty much 2 lines of text, and they do a really good job of making things really readable and digestible on the page. Another consideration here is when you're using 3 or 4 lines on desktop, that equates to maybe around 8 lines on mobile. So yeah, keeping that at a max 3 to 4 lines, and usually even 2 to 3 can really help with that. The second point is increasing your font size. I don't know about you, but every time I have to squint to see something, I am just escaping back to the search results to find something I can actually read. So a good rule of thumb is making your paragraph size around 16 points or even larger and adjusting your headings to scale. Because the goal is, I mean, the moment people reach for the reading glasses, I feel like they're also reaching for the back button as well. So the third point of this is using bullet points and numbers for lists. This kind of seems obvious, but I can't tell you how many times I read an article and I see, 3, 4, 5 plus items in a paragraph format, when in reality, you could put those in bullet points to make them better digestible by your audience. This also has the added effect of really breaking up those paragraphs and making the whole piece more scannable. And then the fourth tip is images also do a good job of breaking up that scary wall. And final tip is if you're going to add images, I've included a link here to a site you can use, but make sure to compress them so you don't compromise your page speed. And then the hot tip that I have, so this free tool is a lifesaver for readability. It's called Hemingway app. And this is actually what it looks like. So you copy and paste your text into this free app, and it automatically highlights areas where you can improve your readability. So for example, my first draft of anything looks pretty much like this, red and yellow. So it shows you where your sentences are leaning on run-ons and how you can break those up. It also shows you where you could use shorter words. So utilize, you could really just use the word use. Shows you where you maybe could cut down adverbs. And then finally, green, they highlight where you use passive voice and you can use more active language. So all of this really helps make your writing more punchy and keeps people on the page. So the spooky content mistake number 2 is not having goals. So, I mean, Austin Powers says this better than I ever could, but if you take the time to create content and don't have a purpose for it and don't give your reader a next step, it's a very dangerous game that you play. So I included just 5 types of content goals if you don't currently have any on your blog, so you can get started. There are multiple different types of goals, but here's a good place to kind of kick off. The first is with free trials. So let's say you're a software company. Within your content, you can actually get people right away using a form or button to sign up to try out your product for a week or 2 or whatever your trial is. The next is sales. This could look like including a link to your products or even at the very bottom of the page, having actual images of the products that you sell in order to get people to add to cart and eventually purchase. The third is email capture. This one's very common. You might see it with getting people to download an ebook or a template. You also might see it trying to get people to sign up for the newsletter so they can convert later on. Fourth, event promotion or registration. Could be something like MnSearch trying to get you to sign up for one of these fabulous monthly events. And then the fifth example I have here is one that I actually noticed not a lot of people use. You can include a call to action just as a sentence at the end of your article to get people to comment their thoughts and ideas. So this has the dual purpose of 1, getting more relevant content on your page, which can improve your rankings. And the second part is when people comment their ideas, you're also getting like ideas to update your content later on. And then the hot tip here is if you're going to spend all this time adding goals, track them, please. I've included some documentation from Google on how you can set up event tracking, but by tracking your goals, you can see what's working, what's not, and get more buy-in from the rest of your team. And then just wanted to show you that, yes, this is effort, but it really works, I promise. So one of my clients, e-commerce, their goal was to increase online revenue. Simple, right? So we linked to product pages naturally within their blog content, kind of getting that sales goal in there. And then we also added a newsletter pop-up to try and capture emails so we could convert them later on. And so this actually worked really well. So content marketing is pretty much the only marketing that they're doing right now. We saw 130% increase in those product page views, more than 900 newsletter signups in 10 months. And then that ultimately trickled down into revenue, and we more than doubled it year over year. So proof that content actually really can work for you when it comes to dollars and cents. And speaking of pop-ups, my third and final content mistake is around the very, very same. So I can't see a show of hands, obviously, because we're not in person, but just throw it in the chat. When you think of pop-ups as a user, what's your first thought? What's your first gut reaction to pop-ups? If you're anything like me, this is kind of how, oh, I see some thumbs down from Josh, but I kind of feel similarly. This is my reaction. There has got to be a better way. I always feel so overwhelmed with pop-ups. And as our friend, the scientist here says, I mean, other people feel the same. Average pop-up conversion rate recently is about 3%, not super high, especially considering how many sites use them. But by tweaking a few things, we can actually stop scaring our users and increase our conversion rate. So here are a few tips on how to do that. So the first is really delaying. Again, can't see show of hands, but I'm sure we've all related to this, where you go to a site and the first thing in your face is a huge pop-up. It's like, whoa, don't spook me out of here. But so I included a source down here. In May of this year, they analyzed more than 1 billion pop-ups and came out with some pretty interesting findings. So they found that the optimal scroll depth is 35%. So after people have gone more than a third down the page, then showing them the pop-up. Another option is timing at least 8 seconds after someone gets on the page. Honestly, I find these numbers kind of arbitrary. I think the whole goal really is to get to think of your user and just not, surprise them right away with a pop-up. Just let them breathe, get their bearings on the page, and then release the pop-up when they've had a bit of time to engage with the page. The second is scaling back display frequency. So what I mean by that is how often you show the pop-up to the same person. So I have been on so many sites where the pop-up kind of just follows me like a sad puppy, where at every page I click, I'm clicking on the same pop-up or seeing it. So kind of best practice is at least a day between display frequency. So 1 to 2 days at a minimum, and you can even go longer. That just kind of prevents people from seeing the same pop-up over and over and getting, annoyed. Third tip here is use images. So this same study found that pop-ups with images convert 84% better than pop-ups that don't. So this is definitely something that is worth A/B testing and just seeing if it works for you. Fourth tip is input fields. So if you're wondering, I really want to personalize my emails and I want to put in first name and email as input fields, but I don't want to scare people off. This study found that that is not the case. 1 and 2 input fields have almost negligible differences in conversion rate. It's when you get to 3, 4, and 5 fields that things really start to tank. So if you really want to have that name or another personalization aspect in there, feel free to include up to 1 to 2 input fields. And then the fifth and final, this is probably the most important tip, offer a crystal clear escape route. Please make that X sign very obvious, very large. Allow people to escape the pop-up if they want. That I think will definitely stop scaring people off and can actually really help your reputation as a site. And then final hot tip here is not all pop-ups are created the same. So test different ones on different sections of your site. For instance, maybe on your blog, you have a pop-up to sign up for the newsletter. Maybe on a product page, you have a coupon for 10% off, say. So just by testing different pop-ups across different sections, you can make the experience a lot better and a lot less scary for your users. And with that, Michael, I will turn it over to you for paid search.
And everybody now, 1, 2, 3. You're on mute.
You're on mute,
Happy
Michael.
COVID. So, and still,
There we go.
there we go. Perfect.
The thing wasn't popping up to let me unmute myself. So good evening, everyone. I'm Michael Gubbert. I am a paid digital media strategist at Rocket 55. I'm also a board member here at MnSearch. So my first mistake is that you don't track your spend. Everybody in paid, we're all about our spends, but then you start spending all this money and you have no idea where it's going. So not tracking the spend outside of the platform is a very, very bad idea for a lot of different reasons. A, there's a delay, just don't do it. And the second reason why that it's a really bad idea is that if you don't have that data in some place that you can access it yourself, you don't know how to react to it. And kind of like, pretty sure this is from, I forget the movie, but the name's escaping me right now. I had it before, but basically you don't know what you don't know. So the second mistake is that you set the wrong daily budget. So when I first started out, I actually made the mistake of where I set a daily budget as the monthly budget. So I blew through a monthly budget in a couple of days, which was not a great feeling. And the client was obviously less than impressed with my management skills. So the advice here is just pay attention to, now luckily a lot of these platforms have actually made this a lot easier over time by making the daily limit as your default option, or they've just gotten rid of monthly budgets altogether, put it in as a secondary option. But you still need to be paying attention to what you're doing. Also, you need to take your time. You aren't going to be the first one to launch this campaign. Somebody else has probably already done it, so be better. And then the third mistake is that you either overspend, or sometimes what's worse is that you underspend. And basically what it says, too little can be just as bad as too much. Everyone knows that overspending is a bad mistake, like I was just talking about, but what a lot of people don't think about is the fact that sometimes when you underspend, that's equally as bad for the client. You're not getting the traffic, you're not getting the results. And then when it comes time to justifying budgets later on and you're asking for more money, it's a lot harder to get it because basically you weren't able to spend it in the first place. And that, yeah. So basically, again, it comes back to knowing what you're spending, you're tracking your budgets, you're setting them up correctly for knowing what your daily limit is, and then you can adjust your manual bids, or you just keep track of your automated bidding. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Brooke, who will continue talking about paid media.
All right, can you guys hear me? Okay, I just want to make sure I'm not on mute.
Yeah, you're great.
All right, sounds good. Well, thanks everyone. So I'm going to continue on from the paid media section that Michael had just talked about. So his was specific to budgets. I'm going to talk more about automation. So you can kind of see a theme here where a lot of it can have to do with some sneaky little settings that can really make or break your performance. But just to give my quick intro, when I'm not a board member, I serve as the director of paid media at NordicClick. So the first mistake that I want to talk about is trusting automated rules. Now, these, I'll just caveat that these are real life stories. So they're pretty cringeworthy in my 8 years of experience here. But my goal is to, talk about them so you guys don't make the same mistakes that I have. So when you're looking at this, thinking about automated rules, they're really in place to help us for a variety of reasons. If you think about just the time they're supposed to save you, so you don't have to spend your time doing a lot of manual things. So why do I say mistake in trusting them? I'd like to caveat by saying, use them use them for some things, but always double check your work. So I'm going to start you off with a little story here. So my first year at an agency, after I moved in-house, it was actually one of my first clients that I had been working on for a couple months, and that same client was parting ways with us due to being acquired. It happens. Usually when they're acquired by a large private equity firm, they bring their own people in. So you're already thinking it's you, it's not you. And you're sad, but this happens. So part of the parting ways is knowing when you have to turn off all campaigns for them, because they were using the same accounts that we had been using. Some will make different ones. But in this case specifically, they wanted us to turn all campaigns off the day of December 25th, which is Christmas if you celebrate it. So what you do, you want to set up automated rules in order to set yourself a work-life balance and really not work on a holiday, because who wants to do that? So when you use them, they can be really great. You're thinking automation for the win. I can spend time with my family and friends. As you can see here in Google and in Bing, setting up both my automated rules to pause all campaigns on December 25th. You think you're good to go, right? So Christmas came and went, had a nice holiday with my family, really didn't think about work at all. You have your automated rules set up to send you emails when these rules occur, so you kind of know what they happen. Get the one for Google, really don't think anything of it. Then I take the rest of the week off, really come back after New Year's feeling like a fresh new person, like you really should after taking time off of work. And then you go into Bing and realize that the automated rule had run, but no changes were made. So in that time where you were allowing yourself some work-life balance, these campaigns actually spent an additional $2,000 during that time frame. So what do? You go into panic mode. And so what had happened in this scenario was our Google Ads automated rule preview had ran with no issues. Those had paused as they should. The Bing automated rules ran, but no changes were made. And it was a long two-monthly process with Bing. And turns out for what they had to go back in all of their technical logs, still deemed us at fault. And we had to eat that cost for our client because in their eyes, that should have been something that was caught between Christmas and New Year's. So my recommendations, so you don't make this mistake, is not to not use automated rules, but to always preview your rules. Really, they take about 5 seconds to do that. So when you're setting them up, if you're taking the time to do it, make sure that they're going to work. It ensures that you're changing the correct data or the campaigns or budgets, whatever you're changing, you need to make sure that it's correct. You can avoid spending thousands of extra dollars like I did in your first year of agency life. Really can take, obviously I'm not over it after a couple of years. And then the last thing to do is really set your rules to receive email notifications when the changes actually occur. So that gives you that extra credibility that that they ran, and then to check those email notifications. None of us want to work throughout the holidays, and I think this is especially important now as we're coming up with Thanksgiving and Christmas. Spend that extra time to make sure that you have those set up so your mind is at ease. All right, so keeping on with kind of the Google automation standpoint, mistake number 2 is in something called target versus observation. This has been kind of my hot take for a while, if you haven't heard me talk about it before. So if you don't know what target versus observation is, this is specifically within Google Ads. If you're using something within Bing, usually it's at observation only, but in Google Ads, it's an audience setting either at the ad group level or the campaign level. So what this does is it determines if your ads and keywords will be targeted to the segmented audience that you're choosing directly, or you're going to target everyone who's in your location, but also just observing that segmented audience that you've selected. So You could be adding audiences to your search campaigns, and you just want to see how they perform a little bit different, or you're adding remarketing lists to your campaigns and you want to target them directly. That's the difference between targeting and observation. So how this works, if you're not familiar with it, and I included a screenshot here, is one, you have to choose from targeting or observation. But the more important piece is know why you would want to choose one versus the other. Google tells you that observation is always recommended. And hot tip, it is not always recommended from previous experience. Reason being is Google doesn't know what type of campaign you're setting up. So the reason observation is not always a recommendation can basically be shown in this data above from a real life client. Again, I promise to send some personal cringeworthy stories here. So this is actually data from a client, but to give you some context of what we're looking at, this was a remarketing campaign. It had been a long-standing client, a very steady campaign. We knew about the audience size. You can see this total audiences here. That's our remarketing list. And it had a very healthy cost per conversion of under $4. Now, how did this end up in here with your display automated targeting with over 1.8 million impressions over the course of about a week and a half and a cost per conversion of $440? What had happened is right about when this feature rolled out is we were adding additional remarketing segment lists to our ad group or campaign, and Google decided to change it back to their recommended observation setting without notification. And I believe that has been fixed, but really you need to check that setting because within a week and a half, we were basically showing to anybody in the United States while also just targeting our specific audience. So the recommendation here to not make the same mistake that I did is to really check your settings. So kind of the common theme around all of this. These are small settings that will either ensure you have a great campaign setup or you're just going to look really inefficient to your client, especially when you see those huge spikes. If you're able to catch it right away, great. But they're never fun to explain to clients, especially the longer you let them go on. So one, understand the differences in the settings and why you would want to use them. So for example, and this is more so a personal opinion, but if you're setting up a remarketing campaign, I would keep that always at targeted because why would you want to expand that out even further? You have an offer or a message specific to those audiences. So you would never want to, at least in my opinion, put that outside into the observation mode. Again, you can avoid spending extra dollars like I did. And it also skews your click-through rate. We see pretty healthy click-through rates with our remarketing campaigns. And then when you target the entire United States, you can imagine it's probably going to be about 0.04% specifically from that example previously. And then also whenever you're setting up new campaigns, this is probably a no-brainer, but I think when we all get into the hustle of things, it's always a good reminder, review your new campaigns at least 24 hours after launching to ensure proper targeting settings. And then my hot tip while you're at it from a targeting setting, there's something here called a targeting expansion, this nifty little slider here that either stays off or they want you to get more reach. Just don't ever use it. I've never seen success with it. In my opinion, it's something like a kind of a lazy lookalike audience. Google is gearing this more towards advertisers who, Google's goal is to maximize your reach. And as agencies, we are really tasked at making your reach the most efficient. So when you've got different goals than Google, you've got different opinions than them. So just keep that off for the time being. Don't ever use it. All right, so I will kick it over then to Brandy, who's going to go to organic search here, and I'll back that up here.
That's okay, I think I've got it here. All right, let's go back. Hi, I'm Brandy, and I am a senior analyst on the organic search team at Agrarian. And I'll tell you what's scarier than the stories that we just heard tonight. While we were viewing, my computer popped up a message that said my internet connection was unstable. So I'm going to go through my presentation and just cross my fingers and hope that no one hacks me and that I can get through this presentation without freezing up. All right, the first mistake that I have to talk to you guys about tonight is dedicated versus shared hosting. It's a very spooky story. All right, I had a client, imagine if you will. She has a membership website with online classes. She's got people streaming videos, downloading content, and 70% of her website traffic is mobile. So as a matter of course, I said, hey, let's switch to dedicated hosting. It's going to provide such a better user experience for your members, for the people who are accessing your blog and your content on their phone. And it's also going to decrease those page load times, because when you got a WordPress site, you got to do everything you can to make sure that the content loads quickly. The happy ending to this is that year over year, we saw an 88%, almost 89% increase in organic traffic. She captured 7 featured snippets effortlessly, and she had an average ranking in Google Search Console of 14 or higher. It was amazing. She went from having 5,000 sessions a month to about a year and a half later having 70 to 100,000 sessions a month. People were just diving into her blog content and joining her membership site. Everything was going, and so we had a very, very happy ending. And as most things do, as most relationships run their course, we parted ways. Let's flash forward to 2 years later. Now, of course, we all kind of like to take a peek in on our clients to see how they're doing after we're no longer working with them, especially if we have access to Google Analytics. Don't deny that you don't do it. So I took a look and I was terrified. Her organic sessions dropped 76, almost 77% year over year. She had a 61% decrease in search impressions, and she had a 56, almost 57% decrease in organic clicks. Her average search ranking went from 14 to 20. Still not too bad, but that's a huge drop. And she lost all of the featured snippets we'd worked so hard to gain. So what happened? Was the website cursed? No, it was a web developer. Unfortunately, she worked with a web developer after we were no longer had our business relationship. And that developer said, you don't need dedicated hosting. You don't need that much. You don't need to spend that much on your hosting. You should go back to shared. And that dropped her speed, and users started leaving the site. Her search rankings dropped. Everything went downhill from there. So the moral of this story is site speed matters. We all know that dedicated hosting provides super fast load times, and it definitely provides a superior user experience, and Google loves fast websites. So it's going to provide you with excellent results in organic search. And we also know that Google has made page speed a critical organic ranking factor. It's part of their algorithm. The faster your site loads, the more Google loves you. But if you don't have a fast site, Google's going to penalize you. It's going to rank you lower in search. But what's even worse than that, your users are going to start leaving the site. You're going to have a worse bounce rate. You're not going to make as much money. And it's just going to be a sad, sad story. The second mistake that I'm going to talk about tonight is the wrong kind of traffic. So this story begins with a client that is a Google reseller. They're someone who helps people transition to Google Cloud. They provide custom services and applications, and they help people move from Microsoft Office to Google Sheets, Gmail, all of the wonderful products that Google provides. What we found when we first started working with this client was that users weren't spending much time on the site, especially users to the blog. Had a really high bounce rate, about 88, 89%. Now blogs typically have a higher bounce rate, but this was extremely high. We also found that the salespeople who were on our calls in our biweekly meetings were always saying, because we'd ask them, how are leads going? And they would say, we're getting a lot of calls for people who are looking for Google support. We're not Google support. We don't help people with Google Sheets. We don't help them with Google Docs. We don't answer their questions. That's not what we do. So we did a little research, and I found that the content on the site was more targeted towards users who were looking for Google tips. So it was articles on how to do certain functions in Google Sheets, or how to get the most out of Google Docs. So it was end user content. So it really wasn't content that was targeted towards business owners, executives, or any kind of system or site administrator who might be looking for help to transition over to Google's products. We also found that there are a number of landing pages that were ranking for keywords like support and help. And that's because the content on those landing pages had those words in it. So what we recommended was to optimize the landing pages for more relevant keywords. Get rid of help and support in the text. Find other words, because we definitely didn't want users to think that this company was Google. We also removed blogs that had really high bounce rates and were ranking for content that really wasn't related to what the client does for its in its services. So those blogs actually had some really high keyword volumes. So it was a choice to look at really high volume keywords and topics to draw traffic, but it wasn't the right kind of traffic. So the happy ending of this story is that the organic users were more engaged after we removed the content. Sales loved us. They had fewer low quality junk leads. Everything was happy until the client noticed that their site decreased 28% in organic sessions, 33% in new users, and 37% in organic clicks. That's my client. She was so scared. Keep in mind, this happened back in March. What happened in March? COVID. So through March, April, and May, we saw that consistent decline, but at the same time, the happy part of this, and what I was able to point out to the client, is that our form fills month over month actually increased 450%. Our form fill conversion rate increased 511%. Our average page views went from 2.12 to 4.16. That's a 96% increase. And our total page views month over month went from 2,040 to 3,526. That's a 72% increase. And what that tells us is that the users were more engaged, they were more interested, they were looking at more content. These were the types of people that the client wanted to work with. Moral of this story is topics and keywords matter. You want to create content that's based on your target audience, not because you have keywords that have high volume and you just want to drive a bunch of traffic to your site. You really want to focus on quality, not quantity. You want to get those quality users. And again, a lot of clients will want to see a lot of sessions coming to their site, but really what it's about at the end of the day is, are we driving more business? You want to get the right traffic with the right keywords. You want to make sure that you're looking at the keywords, even if they're lower volume, if they're related to topics that your your potential customers want to hear about or need to know about, those are the right keywords for you. And also keep monitoring the keywords that are driving traffic to your website, because if I hadn't done this research, no one would have really realized why they were getting so many support calls. Why were they getting so many calls from people who needed help with Google Sheets? So keep an eye on those keywords, make sure that the content that you have on your site is actually driving the kind of searches that you want it to. And now I'm going to hand it back to Abby.
Perfect. Okay, so thanks so much for listening to our presentation. Josh, were there any questions that you can share with us?
Yeah, so I'm looking in here, and there wasn't a ton of questions that were asked along the way. The only question that I can see right now is Seth asked Mike along the way when he spent a month's worth of budget in a day, but did they get any leads?
No.
No. Okay. All right. Well.
And to be fair, with that particular campaign, leads wasn't one of their potential goals. They were simply looking for site traffic. So I guess the happy end of that story is that actually that ended up being a case for them to be able to spend more budget, because we were able to show that spending that much, we were able to get that traffic. It's just the initial fear of coming back after a weekend having spent worth a month's worth of budget was pretty high.
Yeah,
I have
Alex.
something to add to that actually, because something very, very similar happened to me recently where I started a search campaign and set it to daily and put the total budget in there. So it spent the entire budget in the first few hours of the campaign, which was super great. But the positive benefit of it is it was a lead gen campaign, and we got like a ton of like upfront initial leads from it. And then like after the first week or so of the campaigns, because there were multiple campaigns that were live with it, across multiple platforms, we saw like a sharp decrease in lead form submissions after the first week or so. And they're like, wow, like what's happening? What's going on? And I was like, well, sorry, because I kind of messed up. We had a really good start, but yeah, it fell off super quick, and we were able to parlay that into getting a ton more budget.
You meant to do that, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was all on purpose.
That's great. Other questions for the crew, or maybe people want to share their own spooky stories now that the I guess the pump has been primed, so to speak.
I want to hear some scary stories.
I do too. I feel like we often learn best from mistakes that we've actively made, right? Like from things that we've tried that didn't quite work out how we wanted them to. Like, I feel like we really learn from those, and it's helpful if we can share that so we don't all have to make the same mistakes.
Yeah, I've got a good one. One of the worst things that I've ever seen. Actually, same thing happened twice at 2 different places, but we were going through a rebrand. Big rebrand. Logo, colors, everything, right? And this is the type of thing that usually the digital marketing team doesn't have a lot of say in, especially as the horse is getting out of the barn, and we've launched new things, right? The billboard's got to go up. There's been, real estate's been coordinated with. There's like a $20,000 sign that was made, right? And what happens though when the day after the new site launches and 20% of all of your conversions just evaporate overnight? Because how are you going to do an A/B test with your old brand and new brand, right? So yeah, that's actually happened to me twice. The first time we realized it after the fact, and we essentially had to like test our way back to our kind of projected revenue numbers, and we lost about a quarter's worth of business goals there, just because really nothing we could do. The second time though, it was interesting because we had our homepage, our pricing page, our shopping cart, and like the thank you page, we had that all part of an A/B test. And so we actually only launched the rebrand as the A or the B or the challenger experience. And so most people saw the control or the old brand, and then some people saw the new brand. And it was only until we got the new experience converting better than the old experience did we launch the new brand. So that was kind of an interesting kind of phased approach that didn't result in any revenue loss and resulted in an awesome new rebrand.
I dig that approach.
It was very difficult to do.
I bet.
Because people were like, oh, I love the new rebrand. And then on social, they're like, what? And it's like,
what new rebrand?
Yep. It was very confusing, but we actually played it up a bit as if it was like exclusive or kind of a sneak peek, or maybe even wasn't even happening. So it was kind of fun.
Awesome.
Okay. Other questions or spooky stories?
I have a nice, simple, relatable one for paid search people. It was probably 2 weeks into my career, and my manager decided to release me on Google Ads Editor, which is never a great idea because you can do massive destruction with that. Made some massive changes, and spent 2 to 3 days cleaning up those URL changes that I accidentally made to send all of the traffic to wrong pages and broken pages. Learned how to use that real quick after that one.
Yeah, and I'm curious, how did that mistake also tie into like how you train people now?
Yeah,
right?
we're a little bit more cautious when we're making bulk changes.
Yeah. This is
Are you
great.
sure?
I think too, like watching out for like automated extensions that could be bypassing your landing page is a big one for people driving traffic to a landing page.
Yeah.
Actually, I worked on an account also where a specialist who was working on the account before I joined, he had created site link extensions to the main site, but we were using a microsite, so it took a while to figure out why that campaign wasn't performing very well.
Those site links. You know, one time I had automated site link extensions added to my campaign, and the URL was actually for the landing page software that I was using. And so I actually ended up sending like $300 worth of clicks to Lead Pages because that was the landing page software that I was using, and they weren't even linked anywhere on my landing page. Those darn pesky site links. I got the money back that time though.
That's why the auto apply rules, you go and you deselect everything. You don't let Google auto apply anything to any account you ever manage.
I understand that, but that's just like
no.
I mean, it was auto site link extension added, and it was for the landing page software. And I even looked at the page source code. There wasn't even like a single URL to that particular vendor, even in the source code. So I was just like astounded that I could fail that horrendously.
Going off of URLs, it's not something that I was involved in or in any way, shape, or form, but a gal that I used to work with, she's based in the UK and she's about 65, so digital marketing's not quite her thing, but she wanted to have a go at optimizing a blog post, first try at it, and she ended up coming up with a slug where she put the whole article title, like the whole SEO title, and the name of every single heading that was in there, and I swear her slug ended up being about 70 words long with just all the little dashes in between, and I was horrified when I looked at it, just thinking, how in the world did you think that was a good idea? It's scary in that sense, not necessarily any like massive backlash or like something you can't fix, but it was a little scary to see.
Just your luck, she actually ended up ranking for like 18 terms the next day.
Oh my God, wouldn't you love that?
Found some hack.
Maybe. That's the new key thing. Put like 70 words in your slug. You're good to go.
G to G.
I do. I have one that is not like specific to any industry, but my friend who works in marketing, she works for a really big company, and they were all on this like weekly meeting, and someone on the call thought they were on mute, but weren't. And then everyone heard her say, "Oh no, I can talk. I'm just on this stupid, boring meeting." And I just remember talking to my friend, I'm like, oh my gosh, like what happened after that? She's like, I don't know yet. We haven't heard anything. So that's the last I've heard of her.
Listen, those horror stories are like
They scare me.
real. And by the way, like so much worse than that these days, right? Like we've seen.
Yeah, that was a
the
5 on a
news.
scale of
That
one.
was
yeah.
like
That was,
One to-
it could have been much worse.
Yeah, 1 to
you
Tubin, that was a
see-
5. Yeah.
You guys
One to
see the one
Tubin.
where the lady was on the Zoom call and she forgot she had her video on, and she actually was like on the toilet and like put her phone down in front of the toilet. And it's like someone told her, oh my gosh, you've got your video on, and like you could hear it too because her mic wasn't muted.
Oh,
I don't know if she would have showed up for work the next day or again ever, but
It's like an
it made me
SNL.
Oh, it's
cringe so much to
horrifying.
feel it's a video that's just so funny to watch.
That's just horrifying.
I
That's
know.
where you either don't go
Oh.
to work, or you take like some sort of hard line, like you see some of the politicians doing on Twitter now. Like, that was not me. That was a complete fabrication. That was a lie. That's disrespectful. That's disrespectful.
You didn't see me on the toilet.
It
That was
wasn't me.
someone else.
Oh goodness. Well,
This is why if I log on to a meeting early, if I have to go to the bathroom, I double check and make sure my video is off, and I make sure that my mic is off, and I take
Mhm.
my earbuds out and set them down.
Yes.
yes.
It's like all the things like check,
Yeah.
close the office door, check, like whatever you need to do to give yourself that
The microphone
space.
as far away from the bathroom as possible.
Like
I just
put
stopped
yourself
going to
on
the
mute,
bathroom
turn off your
during the whole day.
microphone, like all of it. Just turn
Just
that
never
off.
join meetings via phone.
Yeah, see, now that is one thing I have never done. I refuse. Like, I will not use my phone because I will get up and move. I'm a pacer if I'm on the phone. This is not good in professional settings. It is not good.
At O'Gurian, we created a video at the beginning of the pandemic of video marketing, like video, like meeting bloopers. And if you find it on our channel, you'll find a very amusing mistake that Micah kind of put on there. It was not real. He was doing it just to, I think it was the best one.
I've seen it. I thought it was a really funny.
See, now I got to defend this.
But yeah, we all just put down different things that we were all dealing with at the beginning of the pandemic. And, whether it's a cat jumping on your desk or, forgetting to put yourself on mute when your kids are yelling in the background and you're yelling back at them. Lots of fun things.
Yeah.
Well, I have to say, I really loved tonight's content. Y'all did a great job. Like, can we just like take a moment and just do this? Like hit the reaction or unmute and do the little golf clap, like whatever you need to do. I really feel like we learn best from each other, especially when we're talking about like hands-on stuff. Like we're figuring this out together as we go. We know that this is like a moving target often, and how do we hit it, and how like what's working for some won't work for others, and all of that, right? So I feel like topics like this and sharing, our own experiences really helps something, like things connect, like things click. So I super appreciate that. Josh, there's pizza on your head. I don't understand.
It's in celebration of tonight's content. Yeah.
I'm okay. Yeah. As one does.
Yeah.
Why not, right?
I mean, why not? There's bolognese, there's pizza.
Ooh, I like the glasses. Brandy, those are good.
Oh, okay. What is happening? What am I missing out on?
The video filters.
There are video filters, Carrie.
You see, there are things I don't know about.
Yeah, you thought that was actual digital pizza on my head?
Oh, no, you've got a mustache.
I thought we've been through this.
Listen, this is super good for people like me who are like, oh, squirrel moments, because I have them all the time and I get called out for them.
Well, on that note, we should probably wind things down.
Squirrel. So we've reached the squirrel moment. It's time to go.
Exactly. We really appreciate everybody joining tonight. We want to remind you that you can become a member of MnSearch anytime, MnSearch.org / something or other, but go there and there's a navigation. You'll be able to find it. It's all there. And then you can become a member. You can participate in all of the wonderful things that keeps this organization moving along. Next month, I believe, right before Thanksgiving, we will have another one of these fine events. We're going to be bringing in Will Reynolds of Seer Interactive fame. You'll be seeing more information about that here shortly, which would be great. But yeah, you won't want to miss that because he's got tons and tons of both insights on how to use business intelligence tools and how to swear, which is awesome because I like using both of those things. Anyway, that should do it for us tonight. Am I missing any announcements, Carrie, Abby, Brandy, anybody else?
I feel like we are good to go. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. Thank you for the conversations, which have just been super awesome this evening. It's really wonderful to connect with our community in this way. So thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting us. And geez, like, let's just have more opportunities to support each other as we go forward. So have a great night.
Good night, everyone.